My name is Eliza Bennett, and this is the story of the night my family finally made it clear I didn't belong. I showed up to my sister's wedding expecting to smile, politely blend into the background and play my usual role. The quiet one, the dependable one, the daughter who never made a scene. I wasn't there to stir anything up. I came out of obligation, not excitement, but the moment I stepped inside the venue something in the air shifted. The Grand Pearl Ballroom in downtown Chicago was stunning, flooded with golden light from crystal chandeliers, the scent of goddess clinging to the air. Guests floated across marble floors in designer heels and rented tuxedos. Everything was pristine, orchestrated, perfect except me. I stood just inside the entrance, clutching my clutch too tightly, smoothing down the fabric of my navy blue dress. I had chosen it carefully, elegant but not flat, respectful but not plain. I wasn't trying to stand out. I never was. I only wanted to get through the night. A woman in a headset greeted me at the check-in table with a saccharine smile and asked for my name. Eliza Bennett, I answered calmly. Her smile flickered just a little when she found my name. It was the kind of flicker I'd learned to recognize over the years, pity followed by discomfort. She handed me a place card and hesitated. You're seated just outside the main reception near the coat check, she said too quickly, pointing toward a dim hallway. For a second I thought I'd misheard her. Outside, I repeated. Yes, she said, trying to soften her voice. There wasn't enough space in the main hall for all the extended guests. I blinked. Extended guests. I turned to the large seating chart beside her. My parents, Joanne and Douglas Bennett, were seated at the front next to the bride and groom. Scarlett's friends from college, Landon's coworkers, even his golf buddies had seats in the main room. My name wasn't there, just the card in my hand. Table 27, hallway. I felt a slow burn rise in my chest. It wasn't even an inside table tucked into a corner, it was outside next to the damn C-track, like a guest they had to invite out of guilt, not someone who shared their last name. Still, I CL to a ridiculous hope that maybe it was a clerical error, something my mother would fix the second she saw it. I spotted her across the room, standing next to Scarlett, fussing over her dress with pride beaming from her face. Scarlett looked like she had just stepped out of a bridal magazine, radiant, adored, untouchable. She caught my eye from across the ballroom and tilted her head ever so slightly, then came the smirk. It was subtle but pointed, and in that moment I knew exactly what this was. I walked toward my mother and waited for her to acknowledge me. He didn't. Mom, I said gently, can I talk to you for a second? Joanne barely turned. Eliza, now's really not the time, she said, I still on Scarlett's train. It'll just take a second, I insisted, a tight smile on my face. She sighed and stepped to the side. Scarlett didn't move, of course not. She stood there watching, smug and amused. My seat, I began. It's in the hallway. Joanne let out a soft, dismissive laugh. We had to prioritize immediate family at the main tables. I am immediate family, I said, my voice steady. Don't be so sensitive, Scarlett chimed in, feigning concern. It's just a mix-up. Wedding planning is chaos, you know that. But the glint in her eye told the truth. This wasn't chaos, it was calculated. I looked between them, my mother unwilling to meet my gaze and my sister basking in her spotlight, and I felt something shift inside me, a quiet snap, unknowing. This wasn't just a seating oversight, it was a message, and I heard it loud and clear. I stood still in the cold hallway, completely cut off from the music, the lights, and the laughter echoing inside the ballroom. In my hand was the place card marked table 27. Its elegant script didn't feel fancy, it felt like a confirmation that I had been placed at the edge, not part of the center. The chill seeped through the thin fabric on my shoulders, but it wasn't as sharp as the weight pressing in my chest, a familiar ache, old and unshakable. Tonight was just the last needle into a wound that had never healed. It wasn't the first time I'd been treated as the outsider, but some nights you just can't pretend anymore. My mind drifted back to 3 years ago when I returned home for a weekend visit. It didn't happen often, not because I was too busy, but because I knew I wasn't expected. Joanne was in the kitchen prepping for a small dinner. Scarlett was coming over. Everything had to be just right. I remember the smell of fresh basil in the air, the sound of my mother humming as she double-checked the menu. All the attention was for Scarlett. I went upstairs to my old bedroom, the one with the squeaky window, the faded posters, the shelves layered in dust. It was like a me capsule no one had opened in years. I wasn't looking for anything, just absent-mindedly going through old drawers, and then I saw it, a brown leather notebook, slightly worn, placed carefully beneath my mother's nightstand. Something about it gave me pause, but I reached for it anyway and sat at the edge of the bed. I opened it. The handwriting was unmistakable, my mother's. I started to read. Scarlett first word Bebe 8 months old. Next page. Scarlett first ballet recital. Cried backstage but smiled big for the photos. Scarlett's favorite birthday cake, lemon with raspberry filling. Scarlett was afraid of thunder until age 11. I used to rub her back until she fell asleep. Every page was a memory, a small tender detail carefully written down almost like a diary. I kept flipping. Some pages read like letters, some were lists of favorite gifts, even one Scarlett pretended to like just to be polite. I kept searching all the way to the end, but there was nothing about me, no birthdays, no notes, no mentions, not one line. It was as if I didn't exist in that notebook, and as if on cue my mother walked into the room. She didn't flinch, didn't seem surprised to see me holding it, just shrugged. Oh, that I wrote that when Scarlett was little she needed more attention. You were always independent, I never had to worry about you. She said it like it was a compliment, like being forgotten was some kind of reward for being low maintenance. I didn't respond. I closed the notebook, placed it back exactly where I found it, and stood up. That I didn't say a word that night, but something shifted inside me. I wasn't angry, I just understood, really understood for the first time, that I had never truly even seen in that house. Back in the present, I stood in the same silence, leaning against the cool hotel wall. The music from the wedding buzzed faintly behind the closed ballroom doors. Scarlett was glowing. Joanne was smiling. My father, as always, sat in silence. I looked down at the place card one last time before setting it gently on the small table beside me. They didn't see me, maybe they never really wanted to, and for the first time that night I realized this was a mistake. They hadn't forgotten me, they had chosen not to remember me at all. I stayed there, hand resting lightly on the small table where I'd left the place. See, my chest strangely quiet, as if a storm had passed through and left only stillness behind. The hurt was still there, but dulled now, replaced by something harder to define. For a moment I considered leaving, just walking out as quietly as I had come, and no one would notice. If anything, they'd probably feel relieved to see the unwanted shadow in the hallway disappear. But then I saw Landon. He was standing alone near the bar on the other side of the ballroom, holding a glass of whiskey he hadn't touched. His eyes weren't scanning the room, he wasn't watching Scarlett glow under the lights, basking in the attention. No, his eyes were locked on me. We held the gaze for just a few seconds, but it was enough. He'd seen something, or maybe he'd finally allowed himself to. He walked toward me with the same composed expression he always wore, but when he stopped in front of me his voice was lower than usual. Eliza. I nodded slightly. Landon. Between us hung a strange sort of silence. Behind him there was music, dancing, laughter, but around us stillness, like the air itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to break. He looked down at the glass, then back up at me. I know we haven't really talked much, he said slowly, but can I ask you something? I tilted my head. Depends on the question. He didn't smile, didn't pretend to be polite, he just looked at me directly without flinching. Has Scarlett ever talked about me differently when I'm not around? I felt my throat tighten, not from shock but because I didn't think the question would come so soon. Part of me wanted to shield him, part of me knew there was no point, the truth was already seeping through the cracks. I thought of my table in the hallway, of Scarlett's smirk, of Joan turning her back. I met Landon's eyes. You might want to take a sip of that, I said softly. He did. He drank the whole thing in one go, like someone preparing for impact. I didn't recite texts, I didn't give details, I didn't need to, I just said what needed to be said. I don't think you know Scarlett as well as you think you do. His jaw tightened. I was afraid of that. He turned slightly, eyes drifting toward the far side of the room where Scarlett was still laughing, radiant as ever. She's been different lately, he murmured, controlling. There are things she doesn't want me to see. Before I could respond, another voice cut in, sharp and calm. That's one way to put it. I turned. It was Victoria, Landon's mother. She stood there poised, an unreadable phone in hand, gaze steady. Behind her I could see Scarlett across the room, catching sight of us, her smile faltering for a second. Joe. And didn't notice she was still chatting with guests, entirely unaware. Victoria stepped closer and held out her phone. You should see this. If you're still here, drop a 1 in the comments so I know you're with me. I'm truly reading every single one, and your words mean more than you know. Landon took it. I didn't need to look at the screen to know what was their message. Screenshots. Scarlett calling Victoria a rich, overbearing woman who just needs to write the checks. Scarlett describing Landon as trainable, obedient, easy to mold. Scarlett laughing about how this marriage was her golden ticket, how she'd play the perfect wife just long enough to gain access, then do whatever she pleased. I watched Landon's face as he read slowly, silently. His expression didn't crack right away, but his grip on the phone tightened, his color drained, and when he looked up his eyes were no longer uncertain, they were cold, betrayed. Victoria folded her arms, her voice like glass. Your bride-to-be doesn't just dislike me, Landon, she's been planning to control you from day one. Scarlett had started walking toward us. I saw the way she looked at me, jaw tight, eyes sharp, lips pressed into a thin line. She knew, she always knew, and this time I didn't look away, I didn't explain, I didn't defend myself, I just stood there because this time the truth didn't need me to speak for it. The sounds of the wedding still floated faintly through the walls, laughter, the clinking of glasses, soft background music shifting into a cheerful dance tune. It felt like another world now. Outside, the celebration continued, guests toasted beneath golden chandeliers and warm lights. Inside the small prep room, however, we stood in silence, surrounded by cream walls and tension thick enough to suffocate. Scarlett stood in the center, her fitted wedding gown, pristine posture, stiff chin raised like she still believed she could control the room with a glance. Victoria remained by the door, arms crossed, phone now tucked away, eyes sharp and unwavering. Landon leaned against a side table in the corner, phone still in hand, the weight of what he just read carved into every tense line of his face. I stood across from them, all alone, but for the first time I didn't feel alone at all. I didn't need anyone standing beside me to feel steady. Joanne was the first to break the silence. This has gotten out of hand, she said lightly, the kind of tone me to soften the edges of discomfort. It's a wedding, emotions run high. I think everyone's just overreacting a bit. She glanced at me, then at Victoria, then at Landon, searching for an ally, someone to nod, to give her a way out. No one did. Victoria was the one to respond, her voice quiet but clear, every word cutting with precision. This is an emotion, it's truth. Scarlett scoffed. Of course, she said, eyes narrowing. My controlling future mother-in-law finds a few texts and suddenly on the villain. She turned toward Landon, voice shifting to something sweet but strange. Baby, come on, you don't really believe all that, do you? Everyone vents, sometimes everyone says things they don't mean. Her hand twitched as if she were about to reach for him but thought better of it. Landon didn't speak, didn't look at her, didn't look at anyone, his jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscle jumping in his cheek. His hand around the phone was white-knuckled. Joan tried again, taking a small step toward her son-in-law. Landon, sweetheart, I know this must be hard, but Scarlett's been under so much stress planning a wedding. She didn't finish the sentence because Douglas spoke. He hadn't said a word since we entered the room. He'd faded into the corner like he so often did, quiet, distant, but now his voice cut through everything. Joan, that's enough. 3 words, soft but final. Joan turned, startled, as if she couldn't quite believe he had interrupted her. Douglas looked at Scarlett, not with anger, not with rage, just a kind of quiet exhaustion. You've been protected your whole life, he said slowly, and this is what it's led to. He turned to Landon, then to me. Now others have to pay for it. Scarlett's mouth fell open. You're taking her side, she hissed, pointing at me, her hand trembling. I've been the one holding this family together. I've been the one trying to make things right, and you're going to believe the one who's always been jealous of me. I didn't flinch, didn't move. I didn't need to. Landon still hadn't looked at her. Victoria remained silent, watchful, and Douglas, my father, who had been a ghost most of my life, was looking directly at me now. Eliza was right, he said. It wasn't a defense, it was a confession, and that more than anything silenced the room. Scarlett stepped back, the hem of her dress dragging slightly on the polished floor. The steel in her eyes flickered, her voice caught in her throat. For a second I thought she might cry, but no tears came. Behind the closed door, the reception carried on. A new song had started, something upbeat, something meant to get people dancing. I could hear a cheer, someone calling Scarlett's name. They were still out there, still raising glasses to the perfect bride, still believing the fantasy. They had no idea that behind this door her kingdom had begun to crack. I didn't feel triumphant, I didn't feel vindicated, I felt clear. I looked at Scarlett, not with bitterness, not even with anger, just clarity. She was losing the one thing she always thought she controlled, perception, and no one, no parent, no fiancé, no guest was moving to save her this time. The room had gone completely still. Thick with a silence that didn't need to be announced, it just was. No one spoke. No one dared to. All the noise from the ballroom, the music, the laughter, the clinking of champagne flutes, sounded far away now. Like echoes from a dream someone else was having. Scarlett stood frozen. Her perfect bridal hair just slightly out of place. Her eyes darting between the mother who refused to meet her gaze, the fiancé who had just stepped away, and the sister she spent her entire life trying to erase. Then she laughed. A cold, brittle sound sharp enough to crack the stillness. This is ridiculous, she said, scanning the room. Everyone's turning on me over a couple of messages because she showed up and cried victim. She nodded toward me, voice laced with contempt. I didn't flinch. I didn't speak. I didn't have to. I had already said everything I needed to say, and now the silence spoke for itself. She stepped closer. Her jaw tightening. You waited for this, didn't you, Eliza? You've been dying for a moment like this, and now look at you. Center stage. Finally someone notices you. Her voice dropped, darker now. But I see you. You haven't changed. You're still bitter, still desperate to take what's mine. Her hand moved suddenly. Fast. Reckless. A swing driven not by thought but by panic. But before it could reach me, Victoria stepped in. Her arm intercepted the blow, firm and precise. Scarlett stumbled backward, startled by the resistance. And just then the door behind us creaked open. A burst of sound rushed in, music, a cheer. A server balancing a tray behind him. A cluster of guests craned their necks to see what was happening. Aunt Alice, a few of Landon's cousins, even the DJ, blinking into the tension. What they saw was a bride unraveling. A family splintering. No more hiding behind good lighting and silk tablecloths. Victoria calmly adjusted her sleeve. "Please close the door," she told the server without raising her voice. "This is a private matter." The door clicked shut again, but the damage was done. Scarlett's breath came in sharp bursts. She turned to Landon like a drowning woman grabbing for the last piece of driftwood. "Please," she whispered, her voice laced with desperation. "This got out of hand. I didn't mean any of it. I love you. I want to fix this. We can fix this." Landon reached into his suit jacket and pulled out a cream-colored envelope. "You contacted a divorce attorney a month before our wedding," he said, not harshly but clearly. "These are annulment papers. I didn't sign them yet. I was giving you the benefit of the doubt." He placed the envelope on the small table beside him. "I'm not waiting anymore." Scarlett shook her head. Her hands trembling. "No, you don't mean that. You love me." Landon met her eyes, steady and calm. "No, you love control and you're losing it." Scarlett turned to Joe and, like she always had, like the world had always bent when her mother stepped in. "Mom," she said, her voice cracking. "Please, you know me. You know I didn't mean it. You can't let them do this to me." Joanne looked at her daughter, really looked, and then softly she said, "I'm not letting them do anything, Scarlett. You did this to yourself." That silence hit harder than any insult. Scarlett wavered. Her legs shifting like she couldn't quite find solid ground. He turned to me next. Eyes red. Lips trembling. "You win," she spat. "You've wanted this all along. To be seen, to be validated. So are you proud of yourself now?" I stepped forward. "Not out of vengeance but out of necessity. You've always tried to erase me," I said evenly. "But you didn't realize that in dimming my light, you only made yours unbearable. And now no one sees you as the light anymore." She froze. She looked around, hoping someone would deny it. That someone would step forward, grab her hand, save the day. But no one did. Not Landon. Not Joanne. Not Victoria. And on the day she thought she would shine brightest, Scarlett Bennett found herself completely alone in the dark. News that the wedding was off spread like wildfire through the ballroom. All it took was one person stepping away from that closed door and whispering to another. And the whole atmosphere shifted. Conversations turned to murmurs, then to speculation. Phones appeared. Screens lit up. Nobody was looking at the cake anymore. Or the carefully arranged centerpieces. Or the string quartet playing a soft love song that no one was really hearing. The air, once filled with celebration, now buzzed with confusion and quiet chaos. A young MC stepped onto the stage. Gripping the microphone like a lifeline, he forced a smile, though it barely held. "We'd like to pause the ceremony briefly," he said, scanning the room as though searching for direction. "Please remain at your tables. Enjoy the drinks and, we'll have updates shortly." No one left. The entire mood cracked. The once vibrant wedding now felt like a dinner party thrown in the middle of a storm. Bridesmaids disappeared. Some guests leaned in to whisper. Others kept stealing glances at the prep room door, now cracked open just enough to hint that something very real and very wrong was happening inside. And then the door opened wide. Scarlett stepped out first. Her wedding gown still pristine. Her makeup still intact. But something was different. Her posture had shifted. She didn't walk like a bride anymore. She walked like someone emerging from wreckage, scorched and staggering, trying to hold her head high while everything around her burned. But she didn't have to say a word. The crowd read the truth in her eyes before she even took a step. Victoria followed, composed as ever, giving no commentary. Joanne trailed behind, looking like she'd aged 10 years in the last 10 minutes. Landon came last, but not beside Scarlett. He didn't even glance in her direction. He walked straight through the ballroom, past the stunned guests, past the looks and toward the exit. No one tried to stop him. I was the last to leave. I didn't speak. I didn't need to apologize or explain or prove anything to anyone. I simply stepped forward. Through the cloud of murmurs. Through the scattered expressions of recognition and disbelief. Through the very room where I once thought I had to earn a place. And I walked out of that hotel alone. No one followed me. No one called my name. And for the first time that didn't hurt. The air outside was crisp and still. A different kind of silence than the one inside. This one honest. I slipped off my heels, holding them in one hand, and let my feet touch the ground. The concrete beneath me felt cool and solid. The sky above endless. Freedom didn't arrive with trumpets or fireworks. It came like a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding, finally released. A week after the wedding, my phone buzzed close to midnight. It was my mother. A single message, no apology, just a short line. I think we should talk. You're still part of this family. I stared at the screen. No anger. No pain. Just a light emptiness, like the quiet that settles after a wound finally closes, leaving behind only the scar to remind you that you survived. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. For the first time, I didn't crave acceptance. I wasn't waiting for open arms. I wasn't hoping someone would finally say, I see you now. I stood and walked to the shelf by the window. There, tucked between books and keepsakes, was an old photo in a dusty frame. Christmas years ago. Scarlet front and center, glowing. My mother beside her, hand proudly on her shoulder. And me, off to the edge, barely in the frame, smiling like I was trying not to vanish. I picked up the photo. Looked at it for a few seconds longer. Then I set it down. Not with anger. Not with ceremony. Just down. Because I've learned something. Family isn't about who you're born to. It's about who sees you, respects you, and doesn't ask you to earn love just to stay. Sometimes the people who gave you life don't know how to love you the right way. If it were you and you finally saw that clearly, would you keep trying or quietly set the old photo down and walk away like Eliza did? Drop a 1 if you choose freedom, a 2 if you still believe in giving them one more chance. Not every story ends with a dramatic goodbye. Sometimes healing looks like silence. Like letting a message go unanswered. Like placing a dusty photo back on the shelf. Not in anger but in peace. Eliza didn't walk away to make a point. She walked away because she no longer needed to be chosen. That's the power of clarity. It doesn't scream. It simply moves on. This story reminds us that family isn't proven by blood or tradition, but by those who see you fully and love you freely. The moment you stop begging for a place and start building your own, something shifts. Something liberates. And maybe the bravest thing isn't standing your ground. Maybe it's knowing when to walk away without looking back.